Editor Tony here. My audio in this episode is a little wonky, and Jeff and I were never really able to figure out why. It is fixed going forward, but I do have to ask to please bear with this episode when it sounds just a little bit off. So, apologies for that. It's fine going forward, but otherwise, on with the show. Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 44. I'm Tony, and this game just needs to switch the conjunctions around in its title, I think.
Okay, and I'm Jeff, and today we're talking about Skate or Die, Bad and Rad.
Yeah, see, it should be Skate and Die, Bad or Rad.
Before we begin, and before I ask your immediate opinions, we do just want to give a quick flash warning. Midway through, I guess, both of our footage, one of the stages does have water that kind of flashes in and out on the bottom quarter of the screen. It's a little jarring, so just be aware of that. But with that, Tony, what is your immediate opinion of Skate or Die?
Kind of disappointing. I would say no, I don't recommend this game, but there's something there to talk about.
Okay, yeah, I'm also a no. Pretty easy no for me.
Right.
But we will get into all of that fun stuff. Can you give us the back of the box? I'm sure it's going to be so radical.
Oh my goodness. So I have read a lot of the back of the box here on Critical DMG, as everyone is aware. And manuals too, not a problem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, no big deal. I'm trying to think of any other...
Motocross Maniacs,
that one was pretty bad. But this one literally makes me cringe. There's really no other way I can think to describe it. Getting through the manual and stuff for this game was rough. So I will do my best on the back of the box here. Skate or Die, Bad and Rad. Think you're down and dirty enough to rule the streets? Nothing in your wildest dreams or most hideous nightmares can compare to this 7-level, skin-blistering Thrashorama, sponsored by that crown prince of rock and destruction, N Rad the Evil One. From the second you hyperskate into N Rad's wide world of wipeouts, you'll be pushed to the limits by his ruthless band of skateboard freaks. Punishing pals like the Sonic Boomer, the cool cat-eating rats, and the berserk not-so-happy clown will crash your board and bust your every move. You'll be the bait of a fiendish feeding frenzy, and to escape the jaws of death, you must outjump Fangmaster Flash the Leaping Lizard, zip and duck past oozing mounds of nuclear mud, and wail and assail in Attack Copter Alley, until you ultimately cruise where no dude has cruised before, the hyper-intense Rampage stage. Needless to say, the flesh will be flying. That was actually a lot tamer than the manual. The manual is way worse.
The manual, it feels like they just try to throw in jargon and that vibe as much as they can. But we'll talk about that in the creative discussion, I'm sure. This game, released in September of 1990, published by Konami, so Konami proper, not Ultra over here in the US. It is an installment in Skate or Die, the Skate or Die series, which is really just a skating game, and this kind of deviates from that in a kind of interesting way.
It sure does. I don't have a whole lot of experience with the Skate or Die games.
Me neither.
I know they're on the NES. I haven't really played them very much or anything, but from what I saw of the NES games, they are more what you would think of as like a skateboard simulator, kind of like a sports skateboard game, and this is not that. So,
yep.
I didn't find a whole lot about this game, honestly. I did think that it was kind of interesting that it's Konami developed and published.
Mm-hmm.
That just means that this was the one that they chose to publish themselves instead of through Ultra because of rules back then about how many games you were allowed to publish in the US, Nintendo of America, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. And they did get the rights from EA for Skate or Die. So the original Skate or Die was an EA game. So I guess that's also kind of notable.
Right, right. So it's just interesting that this is the one that was brought by Konami, from Konami, for the North American market, instead of something else developed in-house and then published by themselves, whereas this developed, for the North American market, could have been pushed by Ultra, the branch that, usually published the North American stuff. So, I don't know. I didn't find anything out about, necessarily why that was, or if it mattered, or anything like that, but just interesting, I guess.
Agreed. But with that, yeah, let's dive into the mechanics. So, genre, at first blush, I guess a sports game, a skateboarding game, but really more like action platformer game that you just happen to be on a skateboard. Your goal is to save Miss Ariel from N Rad, so, classic damsel in distress sort of storyline. Control's pretty easy. D-pad moves you around, A jumps, B ducks, and that's pretty much it. 7 levels. You get 4 off the bat that you can choose from, and then you have to, beat those to get to the next 3 bad and rad levels. Tony, how far did you get? Did you save Ariel, or what was your gameplay like?
I played through all 4 of the levels that they give you. They call them, I think, entry levels in the manual, and you're allowed to pick whichever one you want. So I did. I tried all 4 of them. I started out trying to play it from stage 1 and actually progress from stage 1 to 2 to 3 and get through it as much as I could. That did not happen. Stage 1, I could not beat the boss no matter how hard I tried. And so eventually I just gave up and tested out all of the other levels. So I did play all of the ones available, but I didn't get to any of the ones that you can't select for yourself.
Fair enough. Sounds very similar to my gameplay. So the first level is a horizontal mode. They have 2 different, I guess, types of levels. Horizontal, where you're moving left to right. Vertical, where you're moving primarily down. But horizontal levels all have a boss at the end. And that's where, it comes a lot less of a sports game or a skateboarding game and becomes much more of just an action platformer. And this brings me to one of my issues with the game is...
Go ahead.
The first boss was kind of awkward. So you ran into a few enemies before the boss, and you jumped on their head, kind of classic... classic action platformer way to beat an enemy. You jump on their head. The boss, you did not do that. If you jumped on their head, you took damage.
Yep.
You had to kind of jump on the balls that they were throwing at you. They were a clown on a skateboard for some reason. You had to jump on the balls that they were juggling and throwing at you to knock them back at the enemy to defeat them. And that just literally right before that, they had taught you jump on the enemy to defeat them. And then they immediately throw that away. And I didn't get that. I didn't get why they did that.
And not only do they do that, but they make it nearly impossible to consistently hit them back at the boss without them blowing up in your face and you taking a hit yourself.
Yeah, if you hit them too close to the ground, they will, I guess, explode and damage you as well. So just a little clunky. I did watch the speedrun for this. It's around 15 minutes, just over. And, they consistently were able to do it. So I do think there is, a bit of stuff there that you could potentially learn. But I agree with you. I just never was able to really consistently get that figured out.
A lot of the game, from all of the stages that I played in, feels like rote memorization. It doesn't feel like a game that you are going to get better at if you just kind of master the mechanics. It really just feels like as long as you do your best to memorize where all of the stuff is, kind of like Wizards and Warriors X Fortress of Fear, that game, same deal. The mechanics of that game were so nothing that there wasn't really anything you could do to get better at swinging your sword or, jumping or whatever. Really, you just had to memorize where every enemy was going to spawn, how to handle it, where to go, all the treasure, all of that sort of stuff. And that's the only way that I even managed to get as far as I did, because by the time I was done and I had stopped playing through stage 1, basically I gave up on that stage and moved on to the other stages for good. I was able to make it to the boss basically like blindfolded, I feel. Like I was able to get to the boss like I had already done it a million times, even though I had probably only done it like a dozen or so by that point, because nothing ever changes. The enemies spawn in the same places, the hazards are all in the same spots, nothing is new or different, and the actual journey through that first, because stage 1 is split into like 2 parts, essentially. Like the street part and then the weird clown maze part or whatever. So getting from the start of the stage to, well, I don't know, you could consider it, I guess, the first mini boss, but it's just 2 enemies like back to back.
Yeah.
It was nothing. It took like seconds to do that. And then I get to the boss, and no matter what I try, like positioning, jumping, timing, whatever, I could not finish that fight. And it doesn't feel like I need to get better at something that I'm doing wrong. It just feels annoying. I don't know. I want to give you the floor because I know I've been going for a while.
Yeah, I would say that is my biggest issue with the game, is that it seems to reward you more for just bashing your head against the levels and memorizing them than it does skill at the game.
Yeah.
And, we, looking back at, maybe Motocross Maniacs and stuff like that, it had maybe some of that similar memorization going on, but they did a much better job of allowing you to kind of sight read the different levels, and it wasn't nearly as, I think, prevalent in Motocross Maniacs as it was here, because there were a lot of times you would be obviously rewarded for going fast.
Right.
But then they would spawn a enemy or a hazard in front of you that you had very, very little time to react to.
Exactly. 100%. In my notes, that's literally, I'm like scrolling through my notes while you're talking, and in my notes, one of my big things was, it feels like they want you to go fast, but then at the same time, they do everything possible to punish you for going fast.
Yeah, and some of the hazards are just, take a little bit of your life away. So you do have a life bar that you need to manage.
Thank goodness.
So some of the hazards, dogs jumping at you or random balls flying around or those sorts of things, just take a little bit of damage. But I would wager the vast majority of players fell into the pit in the beginning of the first stage.
No, beginning of every stage. They're everywhere. There's instant death pits and spikes and stuff all over the place, and it's annoying every single time.
Yeah, as soon as I found that first one on stage 1, I knew that was just kind of the game that it was going to be.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
But essentially, you start going down an incline, which again, okay, cool, I'm on a skateboard, I'm going fast.
Right.
And then at the bottom of the incline, they kind of do that classic pit that comes out of nowhere. They're easy to jump over if you know that they're there, but really you have to react before you can see it. And it's an instant death pit, so it takes one of your 3 lives away. And yeah, you really don't have time to react if you're going quickly. And, I'm sure some people potentially with like better reaction time than me could, but it's just one of those classic going down a hill into a pit that you can't see until it's too late that always feels bad. It never feels good, and it never even feels like, oh, haha, the devs got me on this one. It's just, it feels like a cheap thing that's thrown in.
Especially literally one of the first things that happens in the game. Like, you barely make it more than, a handful of seconds into the first part of the first stage, and you're going down a hill, and there is a pit right at the bottom. And it, like we had just said, it is such a sign of things to come. Just for it really sets up how you know you're gonna feel about the rest of the game, to be like, oh man, That's not a good sign. That does not make me feel confident that the rest of this is going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
And funnily enough, I don't know about you, but of the two modes between, the horizontal, like, action platforming mode versus the more, like, top-down vertical, it's almost more like an auto-scroller in a way.
Yeah.
I preferred the top-down vertical mode myself. It felt better to control and more what I wanted from a skateboarding game than the horizontal ones. I don't think that it was necessarily better. They both were still suffering from really annoying level design and stuff like that. But like, of the two, I enjoyed those sections more than I did the horizontal ones. Did you feel the same, or how which of the two did you prefer?
Neither, frankly, but I felt like the controls felt a little bit better on the horizontal sections.
Really?
Not great, but I feel like they felt a little bit better. I feel like in the vertical section, it felt a bit laggy, and I think that was on purpose. I think they were trying to instill that sense of like momentum and stuff like that. So,
right.
Turning was a bit slow and a bit unresponsive at times. At least that's how I felt about it. Again, I think that was on purpose, and so I don't really like fault it for that. But it was still just kind of frustrating when, oh, there's an obstacle in front of me. I need to get over to this other side. Oh, I can't because I can't turn in time. Or, oh, I need to go up this ramp to avoid a spike pit. Oh, I don't have enough momentum in that direction. So
right.
I could see how once you kind of got into a fluid state with that, it being more rewarding. But with the clunkiness of obstacles kind of coming out of nowhere, and in the vertical section, they do try to give you arrows to show you kind of where to go. So I guess I'll give them a little bit of credit for that. I found the sluggishness with the random obstacles to be a bit frustrating.
I think one of the bigger things that is kind of inextricable from the design of the game here, and I know we've said this about previous games, you might have to chime in on which ones if you can think of it, because I can't, but it's very malicious. Like, the way that there are so many instant death pits, and the way that things are positioned to have enemies that spawn at like the peak of your momentum, to make it so you either have to do a hard break and potentially still fall off a cliff or into the water or something, or take a hit from the enemy that just like randomly popped up in front of you.
Yeah.
Or is throwing something at you from off screen or whatever. And so it feels bad to play, even when I was enjoying the swerving back and forth in the top-down sections, and it did get into kind of like a fluid going up the hill and then coming back down and jumping over the obstacles and stuff like that. They would put things in the way, like these giant pits that, unfortunately, aren't really handled very well by the jumping. Mechanically, it just kind of breaks down.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get over them. And that sucks. And then you've got to do it all over again. The checkpoint system in this game is basically, if you die, you go back to the start of whatever stage you were on. Too bad.
Yeah.
And that stinks. Like, they're short enough, I guess, but it sucks.
Yeah, the checkpoint system is non-existent.
Right. And like, that's frustrating. So it's just a lot of things that come together to make it feel like the devs don't really want you to see the end of the game. Like I said, we've definitely had that feeling before. Batman the video game also had some really malicious level design. But the difference there is that your kit and the way movement was in Batman was way, way better than in this game.
Yeah.
So even though the things were there, it wasn't so insufferable as it is here.
I was watching my footage as we were kind of getting the show started and everything. And there's one section where you're kind of going over like a slotted floor. So, there's a little bit of space and then a little bit of floor, a little bit of space, a little bit of floor. And yeah, a fish jumped up and is perfectly timed that if you're going over that section, will jump up in that section and hits you, and then you fall between the gap, and then it's an instant death. Yeah, that is, I think, 100% what you're talking about with they planned that to have that effect of this fish is going to jump to hit you to make you fall off. And yeah, while I'll always kind of like, fine, that's how they're adding difficulty, etc. But that's not a fun way to add difficulty. And again, it rewards memorizing, oh, there is a fish that jumps here, as opposed to really being skillful at the game, skillful of being able to jump between those platforms, or however you want to interact with the platforming section. It kind of is just there goes a life because we decided to put a fish here.
Right. Especially because I know that they let you jump on things to get rid of enemies, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But one, it doesn't work on everything. Lots of things will still hit you if you jump on them, or you'll jump on them and they don't disappear. They just stick around or whatever. So it's inconsistent what you do and don't need to jump on. And two, the stuff in the background and the platforms that you do and don't need to jump on are not super clear or consistent either. So that mechanic doesn't really feel good or matter. And so when you're presented with enemies, whether it's the fish or the enemy skateboarders or a boss or whatever it is, you're left to like figure out if you can even affect the boss or the enemy in the ways that you sort of expect you're supposed to be able to. And that doesn't feel good either, because it's not like a puzzle to solve, like, oh yes, how do I need to use my abilities here to solve this problem or win this fight? It's more like, oh man, are my abilities actually going to even do anything at all? Or am I going to run into this thing and I'm going to take damage when I expect that they should take damage?
Yeah, and all of this is while you're presumably trying to go fast on a skateboard. It's not like Super Mario Land where, yeah, sometimes you can just run across the level and encounter the obstacles as they come, or you can go slower and play the game that way. This game really feels like it wants you to constantly be going kind of at the maximum speed.
Yeah.
And the mechanics just didn't come together in a way that felt satisfying to play, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about the mechanics are you do have pickups. So
Sure.
You can pick up, pizza, ice cream to refill your health, canned goods, which kind of just look like gems that give you points.
Yeah.
And you do get extra lives if you get a certain number of points. And this also kind of frustrates me because you get your first one at 20,000 points, relatively standard. But then it goes up in 30,000 increments. And so I'm just like, just start at 30,000 and then go up in 30,000 increments. But at 20,000, 50,000, 80,000, 110,000, you get a bonus life. Cool. Again, whatever.
Yeah. Literally nothing. The health pickups, good. Glad they're there. But the points and stuff like that, I don't even know if I ever got an extra life. Maybe I did and I just never realized it. But like, most of what I have to say about the pickups will come in the aesthetic section.
Okay, I'm done with the mechanics, so let's have a quick break and then we will get into the creative discussion.
Ad break.
You know, the original Game Boy might not have been internet connected, but we sure are. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you could find us on Blue Sky at criticaldmgpod.bsky.social, or you could email us at criticaldmgpod@gmail.com, and either of those will get to us faster than you would expect for people who are stuck on tech from the 1990s. In a world not too unlike our own, there are creatures known as pups, doll-like beings brought to life through magic. These pups used to live a life of peace and harmony in their forests and towns. This was shattered when the evil king Hocus Pocus arrived and began to use mysterious powers to control the poor pups, turning them into an army bent on world domination. As one of the only remaining pup knights with your own free will, it falls to you to take up sword and shield in defense of the once bustling city of Pup Town. Fight your way through stage after stage of enemies, taking them down in back and forth turn-based combat, gaining experience and coins as you go. Keep yourself upgraded and well-fed back at the tavern and other still inhabited places around the town square. The more of the enemy's army you're able to clear out from around Pup Town, the more its inhabitants will make themselves known to you, maybe even helping you continue to grow stronger and better able to put an end to the evil king's reign of terror once and for all. So get going. There's an adorable cast of sprightly furries that needs your help. Will you be the savior of Pup Town? Pup Panic by Unicorp Entertainment is available now on itch.io for all Game Boy systems and emulators.
And we're back. Not bad. We are not bad.
Nope.
Just back. This game's music is also not bad.
Agreed.
If there was anything redeeming about the game, it's the soundtrack.
Yeah. I mean, title music, pretty good. Nice and upbeat. The rest of it, pretty good. So when I was booting into it, I was like, okay, this is nice. And then the title screen is extremely bizarre to me. So
for sure.
Has this like kind of nice upbeat soundtrack going on.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Konami logo come up, then the, kind of basic title screen. You can't go anywhere. It doesn't let you. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, and if you push a certain number of buttons or something, it'll let you get past it.
I don't think so.
But it just stays there. Eventually we'll scroll to like trademark nonsense, and then scrolls back down, and then you can push start. And it's probably like a solid 15, 20 seconds that you're just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, so I guess you have good music while that's going on, but just bizarre. I think the first time we've had that sort of thing where you couldn't kind of immediately start playing the game.
Yeah, I thought something was wrong when I first started because I was like, why is the start menu weirdly slow and unresponsive? I was like pushing all the buttons, trying to get it to react, and it just does a slow pan, and then it goes back up. And then after it goes back up, it says push start key, and it's like, oh, okay, that was really weird. Like, in other games, we've seen the credits presented, as the game loads up, and I don't think they've always been skippable or whatever, but this is just a really weird and interesting way to do it. It just felt so strange. It doesn't make you do that if you get a game over. Yeah. I'm pretty sure after that you can skip back over to the start menu.
That is true, which is nice.
Very appreciated for that, at least.
Yeah, just rub it in your face a little bit, like, no, you have to sit here for 15 seconds when we tell you that
I
Skate or Die is property of EA and N Rad is property of Konami.
I would not have sat through that over and over again. There is not a chance. No way. If you got a game over and had to sit through the slow pan every single time, I would have done. This would have been a very, very short looped footage for anybody watching the YouTube version. So music, good. Sound effects, non-existent to me. I literally couldn't tell you a single thing about the sounds in the game at all. Nothing stands out as bad or good. I don't think anything was environmentally interesting or anything. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I definitely sound like I'm on a skateboard. You're hearing wheels clattering or anything. I couldn't even tell you. It none of it stands out. Like I said, if it wasn't for the music, I don't know that there would really be a whole lot about the game to even say much positive about aesthetically, because the sprites are fine.
Yeah.
They're just fine. They're not difficult to see. Your little guy looks like, a little guy on a skateboard. And the clown on a skateboard looks like a clown on a skateboard. The dogs and rats and fish, everything looks fine. But I don't know, none of it makes sense. It doesn't feel cohesive. It's not like Castlevania where all of the enemies are in there. It's like, oh wow, these weird bugs and these weird monsters shooting fireballs and suits of armor or whatever. It's like, no, this got dogs and dudes in boats with harpoons and
and tires,
Loch Ness monsters, and like none of it makes sense. It doesn't feel like anything. It's just like, what bad guy makes sense to go in this level?
Yeah, I think the only cohesion is that it's all just kind of absurd, and
yeah, sure.
I guess you have to kind of go that route potentially when you're trying to make a skating game into an action game.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they could have just stuck to a singular theme, you know, like, for instance, the enemies that are like punks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's one that throws like knives at you, and there's one with like boomerangs or whatever, and they're very clearly supposed to be punks, you know, like also skateboarding street toughs or whatever.
Yeah.
One of them has like a mohawk on the sprite.
Yeah.
That's, you know, kind of what you would already be expecting from a skateboarding game, is other skateboarders or whatever. So why aren't there just more of those kinds of characters? Even if they wanted it to go absurd, I don't necessarily not like the clown on a skateboard. I think it's kind of funny, but like, it just kind of falls apart after that first level, and then it's just like, now you're in a sewer. Now you're on the beach. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree, and it's just a very bizarre, because the bosses you fight are a clown, a guy in scuba gear, presumably.
Right.
Bionic Lester, who has like a wingsuit on and just throws knives at you. And then the big bad guy, N Rad, the evil one, is just like in a floating chair thing with
I know.
So again, just kind of the only thing that ties them together is that it's all kind of absurd, and the fact that they're all on skateboards as well. I will say the manual depicts them pretty well.
Sometimes.
They show the bosses pretty well. I dislike how they show, the kind of punks, because they look more just like, I don't, like, maybe ninjas on skateboards, potentially, or...
They look a little racially insensitive, I'll be honest. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is not what the sprites in the game look like at all.
And then we kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but the game in-game doesn't feel too like rad or whatever, you know, they're not like really hamming that much up in the game.
Yeah, there's not really any text at all.
Yeah, the manual is so like in that vein that it's
so bad.
Yeah, it's almost difficult to actually read through the manual and learn kind of like what you're doing. Even the button controls they put in.
Yes. Everything's in character.
Yeah.
Everything is in voice. Like the whole manual is in the voice of like 90s radical skateboarder.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much.
Not even that. Like, I have no problem with that, but it's almost like to a caricature level of intensity.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I guess they stuck with the bit, so I guess maybe kudos to them, but...
The back of the box is not like that. The back of the box, if it was all like the back of the box, it would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a lot more like Motocross Maniacs, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely still in character, but not like over the line to the point where it potentially jeopardizes readability of the manual.
Mm-hmm.
Like understanding of the manual to be like, what?
Yeah.
What are they even talking about right now?
Yeah, so the manual, I would say skip this one if you are, you know, looking at the game. I don't think it adds anything. Gameplay is easy enough that you don't need to really go through the manual. I think the only other thing I have in the creative discussion is something that you did kind of mention in the mechanics, is that the background does kind of blend in with things that you can actually interact with.
Yes.
So
my goodness.
Are a lot of ledges and things like that you can jump on, and so you have, you know, multiple platforms in your platformer. A lot of them use the same kind of lighter color palettes as just the background. So it's not, I didn't find it to be a huge deal because a lot of the time you don't really have to necessarily interact with those other platforms, but it definitely is a little bit confusing as to where to actually jump, what you can actually interact with or has collision. And, I think that, again, ties back to it rewards memorizing the stage as opposed to being able to sight read or, really have skill at the game.
Yeah. The stuff doesn't stand out. It's like they're using the palette available to them in such a way as to make the things look like they are in the background, but not then highlight those things that you're supposed to be able to actually like travel on, jump onto, whatever, to let you know that that's something you're supposed to be doing. They don't use the dark color to, make those things stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they use it more for, like, it's used artistically. Like, I will give it that the backgrounds do look good. Building facades out in the street look good, and the sewer area, for as irritating as the flashing can be in the water for stage 3, it is a cool effect. I do think that it looks good, like the way that it moves up and down.
Yeah.
And they try to make it look like it's alive with motion, active. So a lot of the things in the background do look good, but they're not necessarily functional. And that's just a problem for readability and knowing I don't need to jump on this, or oop, that was a ledge I missed. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. I think that brings me to kind of like my wrap up, unless you have anything else for the creative discussion.
No, all of my points can be saved for my own wrap up, so please go ahead.
To me, it just all comes back down to this game is just about memorizing the levels. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, sometimes I think, I don't find it fun, and I don't think this game feels rewarding when you do those things. Like when you remember the level and kind of just go through the motions, that's kind of what you're doing, is going through the motions. It isn't really rewarding in the same way as I would say like maybe, like speedrunning a Super Mario game where yes, you're memorizing kind of like button inputs, but when you get it done correctly, it feels like you accomplished something.
Yeah.
This just didn't have that same sort of reward feeling. It just felt monotonous and tedious.
Yeah, I totally get that. 100%. It was literally the opposite of what I would have wanted from a skateboarding game. Like, they put crouch on the B button instead of on the down on your D-pad. And so not only does that not make sense and got me hurt or killed multiple times, but it also means that there's no tricks, there's nothing to do with balance or anything like that, and they left so much of the button real estate just like unaccounted for. The select button doesn't do anything. The directional pad, you basically only use the left and right for most of the levels in the game. And B is something that should have been assigned to the D-pad and used for something else. So it just feels like nothing. It's like the most bare bones control scheme. And for a game where you're supposed to be on a skateboard, going fast and dealing with enemies and whatever else, it just adds to so much to make the game feel like it is not respectful of any effort that you might want to put into it. Like, there's nothing really to learn. It's just memorizing where stuff pops out. And there is just way better skateboard games, even on the Game Boy. Just shameless plug, I guess. Friend of the show, Platina XO, has actually a skateboarding game out just recently called Moxie Graffiti Burst. It's rad and not bad. It's really, really fun. I would recommend that game way over this one because it does what I wish this game did for a skateboarding game. It's got grinding and better handling of enemies and collisions and also a really rockin' soundtrack, and it's a lot of fun. So, like, I would not recommend Skate or Die Bad and Rad to anybody. I can understand that they were trying something different, because this isn't exactly like the other Skate or Die games, but I don't think that it paid off here.
Yeah, how are you going to call your game rad when I can't even do a sick kickflip?
There's nothing. There's no kickflips. There's no grinding. Like, my first thing that I thought when I got into this game, and was kind of my first sign that it was going to be disappointing to me, wasn't the pit. Like, yeah, the pit sucked too. But it was the fact that B made you crouch, and that it didn't have anything to do with, like, prepping yourself for, like, a sick jump or something like that. It was like, no. It's just crouch. It's just, this is what the D-pad should do, but it's on the face button. Like, woof. This one is not worth the batteries for me. Anyway, on that note, I think it's quiz time.
I agree. Currently sitting at 83.3%, so doing pretty well. It's slowly getting higher. Hopefully, this quiz treats me better than the game did, but we will see.
Aiming for 85 before halfway through the year.
I don't even know if that's possible, but we'll see. We'll see.
I was gonna say, I don't know, actually. I didn't do the math. You're gonna do rad and not bad on our Skate or Die Bad and Rad quiz.
Let's see.
Question 1. Bad game, good music is something that we're pretty familiar with on the show. But the through line in this instance is much more connected than usual, as one of the composers for this game has also done the music for another game in our past that we thought had great music but not so great gameplay. Which of these games did Konami composer Funauchi Hidehiro make the music for before this one? A. Castlevania The Adventure. B. Motocross Maniacs. C. Nemesis. Or D. Actually, every game so far it's just been fine.
I don't know. I'm just gonna say Castlevania. I like Castlevania's music, and I'm going to say Castlevania.
Good. It was Castlevania.
Ah, let's go.
Yeah, Castlevania did have really good music and not so good gameplay.
Castlevania was so close.
I know.
If it was just a little bit faster, it would be a complete banger. But anyway.
There was also, speaking of malicious level design, but anyway, go back and listen to that episode if you're interested.
Yep.
Funauchi Hidehiro, his Konami career and Game Boy career spans a commendable 9 separate entries, all with him in a sound and or music role. Castlevania The Adventure was actually his very first game in that role, and we'll hear more from him not only in the game that we're talking about today, but also in the Castlevania sequel, which is a ways to go, I believe, as well as a Tiny Toons game, and even another sports game down the line.
Interesting.
Yep, so looking forward to more good music, I hope. Okay, first one down. Ready for question 2?
Let's do it.
Question 2. The sound design role for Skate or Die Bad and Rad lists Noguchi Kazuo, given as the shortened K Noguchi here, in tandem with the previously mentioned Funauchi Hidehiro in the credits. However, Noguchi-san had a far less prolific career as a game composer or sound creator, as far as I was able to confirm. According to the Video Game Music Database website, is it true or false that this game is the only game he actually did sound or music work on?
I feel like he's probably done others, but I'm just going to say true.
So true that this is the only game he's worked on?
Yes. Even though I think that's probably wrong, I am going to say true that this is the only game that he worked on.
Well, it is wrong. He worked on 2 games.
Okay. I figured, yeah, I don't know. True was just speaking to me, even though that just felt incorrect.
That's okay. That's just how it works sometimes. But yeah, Noguchi Kazuo actually worked on 2 games in a sound role before apparently exiting the industry. Apart from Skate or Die Bad and Rad here on the Game Boy, he was also the credited sound effects designer for a 1988 arcade game called Metal Hawk. My favorite part of his profile on VGMDB is a very small note at the top of the profile page that lets us know that Noguchi Kazuo, quote, currently works as a pharmacist.
Oh.
So, good for him.
There you go.
He just did the music and sound for those 2 games and then went on to something else.
Fair enough.
That's okay. 2 out of 3 is fine. Question 3. While this game was developed and published by Konami this time, rather than their Ultra Games arm that they have some of their US releases go through, we talked about that at the beginning, it was actually not the case when the game made it to Europe a year later. Palcom was basically Konami's Ultra Games shell corporation for the European market. However, is it true or false that despite being essentially the same business, Palcom outlasted Ultra Games and wasn't shut down until 2 years later than Ultra Games was?
You know what? I'm going to say true as well. I'm just going to stick with true.
That's fine, because it is true.
Let's go. See, I was just thinking true too early. I had a premonition.
Yep. You should have skipped ahead, like Future Sight, one question ahead. But it is true. Not only did Palcom publish some Konami games in Europe that North America didn't get, but it also went on until 1994, outlasting the North American Ultra Games branch by an additional 2 years. Interestingly, Konami also published some games using their own name rather than Palcom in Europe, despite being published under the Ultra Games umbrella here. So, if nothing else, this all is just an illustration on how ridiculous all of the publishing and releasing stuff was back in the day.
Yeah, Konami was just doing things, but 2 for 3, I'll take it. Not great. I am down to an 82.9 now, so unfortunate.
No!
But could have been worse.
How will we make it to 85% by the summer?
We'll see. But with that, can you remind us what the listener quiz from last week was?
I can. It was about, in the NES version of Pipe Dream, there is a cheat code that gives you all the time you need to get working on the pipes and putting them in their places. So by holding start when a round begins, you can press A, B, B, A quickly, and then when you unpause, you have this cool new power. Jeff, what is the cool new power?
You can pause time. I don't know. I feel like I knew this last week, but I have forgotten since playing Skate or Die.
You're right, though. You can. You control the flow of the water through pipes, so you sort of do pause time.
Ooh.
You put the code in, and then anytime you want while you're playing, you can just press B, and the water in the pipes will just stop.
Oh.
So, you can give yourself as much time as you need to put the pipes in wherever you need them to go, and then when you're ready to let the water start over again, you hit select, and it starts up again. So, yeah, actually, you're kind of right.
I'll take it. We'll add that one to my score for this week's quiz.
I was gonna say we should be like the audience question is like extra credit, and if you get it right, we'll just rub out the one you got wrong on the original quiz.
But with that, what's the listener question for this week?
So, Skate or Die, Bad and Rad, quiz question for everybody at home is that in the pages of our favorite Canadian strategy publication from the 1990s, that being The Game Player's Strategy Guide to Game Boy Games, Volume 1, Number 1, from summer 1990, Skate or Die, Bad and Rad has its own full-page section in between Shanghai and Snoopy's Magic Show, which I really want to get to. However, despite being in a strategy guide, specifically in a section listed as Reviews, there's nothing here that isn't already on the back of the box or in the manual. Even the screenshots are super lackluster, as they don't show more than how far into the game. Jeff, any ideas?
No idea. I could randomly guess, but I'll do that next week when we rehash this question.
Listeners, Leave in the comments if we should give Jeff the credit for answering correct audience questions and absolve a wrong answer on the quiz.
Let us know.
Never too late to update policy.
With that brings us to the end of Skate or Die. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Critical DMG. And it's that time again. It's the end of the month, so that means our Patreon newsletter is going to be coming out shortly. This month, we have a few different things that we're doing. I'm playing Celeste, so, a nice little, I would argue, maybe a little bit better of a platformer than Skate or Die was.
Maybe.
Just a touch. Just
a little bit. The comparisons are so difficult to draw.
But Tony, what are you working on this month?
So I am playing through some NES and Famicom games that I have never played before. I have been just digging into that library sort of on my own. And because of how close the NES and the Game Boy are, as far as like hardware and capabilities and things like that, and also sort of presentation, a lot of the games have sort of made me wonder why we never got them on the Game Boy. There was a lot of porting from the NES, going on or from other places, and it's just kind of made me wonder why that didn't happen. So some of them I played through, and I'll be talking about how I think they would actually fit really well on the Game Boy.
Awesome. We're also just doing an update to our rankings for the 1990s. So
yes,
a bit different than our year in review episode that will be coming up whenever we're finished with the games from 1990. But, we just kind of chat a little bit about what we're feeling with the new games, the games that we've played so far. So you can also look forward to that. And as always, we appreciate anyone who hops over there for free membership, paid membership, all of that fun stuff.
Absolutely. We always appreciate the support. And like I have said, I'm pretty sure multiple times, at least in the Patreon by now, we couldn't do it without you, even though we still would. It definitely makes it worth it to have you along for the ride.
100%. So that brings us to the actual end of Skate or Die.
Only one time.
We will see this one more time with a second entry into the Game Boy. But next week, we've got a game that I'm interested in, but maybe not in a good way. But we are playing Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, no. Okay, so I really like Wheel of Fortune. I definitely grew up watching Wheel of Fortune, and I love board games and stuff like that, and I am terrified of how this is going to be implemented here on the Game Boy, because if there is one thing that I don't think really any of the early video game systems do well, it is text entry.
Yeah, so we will see. We'll see how true to the game show it is, or maybe it's not even for the game show. That would be bizarre, but
oh my gosh, that'd be wild.
Yeah, well, it's another skateboarding game.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's just another skateboarding action platformer. It's just got Pat Sajak on a skateboard.
Well, join us next week, and we'll talk about it, and we'll figure out what the game actually is.
Yep. Until then, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.